Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you've been enjoying the Al-Quds Art Festival during the day, and now you're ready for some serious talk about, or less serious talk about entrepreneurship. The Tharawat Talks is a series of in-depth conversations on entrepreneurship and multi-generational businesses. It was launched in this Tharawat space by the Tharawat Family Business Forum. So I will first start by explaining that the Tharawat Family Business Forum is a non-profit network for MENA family businesses, launched by Dr. Hisham El-Agami in 2006 and successfully managed by Farida El-Agami all these years. Last year they decided to create this wonderful space, the Tharawat space, which serves as a hub for learning, exchange of ideas, co-creation among multi-generational family businesses across the MENA region. They especially focus on sustainability and innovation, and they have different kinds of initiatives. One of them is this series of panel discussions called the Tharawat Talks. The first Tharawat Talks was held in September last year, when we focused on the role of creativity in entrepreneurship and business, and it was to support the Al Circle Lattice, the opening of the art and cultural season here in Al Circle Avenue. And now we are honored to also support the 5th edition of Al-Quds Arts Festival, and that's why we organized this talk, but we thought that the topic should be a little bit different. The topic tonight is turning crisis into opportunity, the entrepreneurial journey through tough times. And we aim to analyze different types of challenges that entrepreneurs go through, and also to share tips on how these situations can be turned into some interesting learning experiences and ultimately positive experiences. Therefore, I have a few great entrepreneurs from Dubai with me tonight. First of all, the lady Jumana Al-Darwish, co-founder and happiness officer of the Happy Box. Thank you, Jumana, for joining us tonight. Tarig El-Sheikh, serial entrepreneur and finance professional, and many more roles. I suppose we'll talk about that tonight. Thank you so much for coming. Ziad Kamel, hospitality entrepreneur, and he's basically really a serial entrepreneur in that sector. So correct me if I miss something. Founder of Stereo Arcade, managing director of Couqley Middle East, founder and managing director of Couqley Middle East, and Aegis Hospitality as well. And we are expecting Samer Hamadeh, your co-founder. He is also a co-founder of Stereo Arcade, founder of Xylobands Middle East, co-founder of Aegis Hospitality, and co-founder of Couqley UAE. He will join us in a few minutes. I'm Tamara Pupik, editor of Arabian Business Startup magazine, and I'm happy to support the Tharawat Talks from the very beginning. I'm actually honored. Thank you so much for inviting me again. So before we start, an important thing is that the wonderful Tharawat team would like to invite you to share your thoughts on the whiteboard to our left, and also please feel free to propose ideas for next talks or any kind of initiatives that you find are needed among entrepreneurs in Dubai. So we will first start by defining, if possible, if there is a definition of what is success and what is failure. If we all read about, for example, Leonardo da Vinci, he was not afraid of a failure at one particular project, but he was afraid that he would fail in achieving anything of significance, which has led him to constantly create and to become known as the Renaissance man, which shows that it is deeply personal experience. It depends on all of us. In today's terms, we could say that Leonardo was a workaholic or a serial entrepreneur, right? One big project after another. So let's start with Jumana. What is success and what is failure for you?
For me, success is when you have passion towards an idea or an initiative or an enterprise and you run with your idea. You take all of your passion and you go for it. That to me is success, is reaching to my full capacity, what I can possibly achieve. Failure is when you slip and you can't get up. That to me is failure. And as an entrepreneur, there are many times where I feel that there are so many challenges. It's a roller coaster at the end of the day. And sometimes I do want to hide. Sometimes I do want to run away. But it's that, that passion that keeps you moving forward. And it keeps you running with your idea and moving the masses and reaching ultimately your goal.
I didn't explain for those of you who don't know what the happy box is, and it is actually the good description of your understanding of success. Can you just give us a few lines about it?
Absolutely. So the Happy Box is essentially an educational company. We specialize in activity boxes for children between the ages of 3 to 11. I started this company 2.5 years ago in Dubai. Prior to that, I worked for a number of government entities, both for the Jordanian government and under his leadership, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, for actually 8 years. I served him. At one point, I had reached kind of I've reached kind of the capacity in my career. I was the head of corporate planning and development at Dubai Cares. I loved what I did. My background is in philanthropy and social development. I kind of knew what I wanted to do ever since I was young. I had this passion of changing the world, doing something. And then one night, I woke up in the middle of the night and I just felt like I could move mountains. It's a really bizarre feeling that you experience because I felt like my life was kind of on monotone. I would wake up, do my job, and leave. But I just felt like I could contribute so much more. So the next day I actually resigned on excellent terms. I thought of this idea. I thought of kind of finding a way to touch other people's lives, and that was through happiness. At that point in time, 2.5 years ago, there was a movement, an ultimate movement of happiness. Everyone was questioning happiness, their state of happiness. I'll ask you here, what is happiness to you? Happiness is being with your family. Happiness is being with your loved ones. Happiness is Nutella. Happiness is a moment. So what I did was I took this concept of happiness and I packaged it in a way where it did social good. So it brought families together, it brought communities together, but at the same time, it would be sustainable as a company. The Happy Box actually transformed now into a lifestyle brand. So it started out for children and basically just focusing on children. And now we're happy to announce that it will be a lifestyle brand. So it will focus on art. There will be an art gallery. There will be a coffee shop. There will be design services. So the whole concept kind of evolved from the beginning, but the heart and the root of it is happiness. And we took it. It's a dining room startup. It started on my dining room table. I sold 25 boxes to all my friends. I made them all buy it because they're my friends and they have to support me. And then it moved to my garage. And then I had to move houses to get a bigger garage there. And thousands of boxes were just leaving my house through, with the support of my partners and, my logistics team. And then it reached a point where, it went global. So we have 6 franchise offices around the GCC. And now we're moving it from my garage, finally, to Sirkal Avenue, Studio 73. So this is the Happy Box.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Oh my God, I'm going to cry now.
and it's interesting how the whole concept fits into her definition of success. That's important, that it fits into your definition of success, right? Passion. First to welcome Samer Hamadeh. Welcome, co-founder of Stereo Arcade, Xylobands, Aegis Hospitality, and Couqley UAE. Thank you guys both for joining us today. We are talking about what is success and what is failure for each of us. So Tarig, will you take the lead? Please also say a few things about your entrepreneurial journey and then...
Okay. So I'll start by the definition of success and failure, and then I'll let the crowd choose. Because I've got so many failures. So success for me is ultimately the achievement of your goal or the impact that you're trying to do. That's how I define success. So whether it's you want to sell a company, or whether it's you want to feed 1,000 mouths, or whether it's you want to become a doctor and save 100 lives a year, whether it's I want to be a great dad to my kids. That to me is and it's quantifiable, and it's something you should be able to measure. That to me is my definition of success. I think I'm a builder by nature. Failure is your path to success. That's how I see failure. It's your default state. And I think that's the slight subtle nuance, at least the way I view it, or the way when I'm trying to explain to people how to embrace failure. It's literally your default state when you start, whether you start with an idea or start with a concept. I want to be happy, I'm frustrated, whatever it is, it's your default state. You have no idea who your customers are. You have no idea what your business model is. You have no idea what the markets are. You're literally ignorant, right? It's your default state, and then you fumble and you learn and you build. It's the exact same process that we have as children when we're learning to walk, right? But you just don't care. You sort of just do it. You fumble, get up, fumble, get up. Before you know it, you're running and you're really proficient at what you do. So I always tell people, if you're in the middle of launching a company, even if you're successful, even if you're growing, even if you raise capital, your default state's still failure. You're always trying to make it better. You're always trying to unfail your company, as I like to say it. So coming back to a story, okay, I'll let the crowd choose. I don't know how you want to do it, if you want to put up your hands or whatever. So success out of failure, that's the question. Okay, so story number one could be how I played a pretty big role in causing one of the collapses of the largest investment banks in the world, and came out of it to launch a company. That could be one. Happy to share that one. Second one is how I got kicked out of one of my own companies, only to launch another company because my son gave me an idea. So like you, I also steal ideas from my kids. And then the third one is, and this one's a pretty tough one, how I effectively ran a shoestring company, and then one of the co-founders died, and we still had to persevere and keep going. So which one do you guys want to hear about? Number two? Which one was number two? Oh, the exciting one. Oh, the drama. Okay, fine. Okay, so startup or company number three. So I had the idea young ago. Give you a little bit of background. I worked at Lehman. Sorry. Yeah. And after the collapse of Lehman, or Ben Bernanke making that wonderful call in September 2008, I was like, I'm done working for people. I'm going to work for the best idiot that I know, and that's myself. So I left and I started a suiting company with two American partners called Not Standard, and we sold suits online. Pretty cool idea.
Here in Dubai, right?
We started here in Dubai, yeah, to sell suits in the UK and the US. I mean, at the time, everyone was like, you're crazy. I was like, we don't care. So we just kept going. And we actually pitched you, I think, once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away. I'm a Star Wars fan. So anyway, so the company was doing really well. We raised venture capital money from some pretty big people. Sales were going up. And then what typically happens, and this might be a point to raise later, is sometimes you have differences in the direction and the vision in which the company wants to go. And clashes happen between founders, right? It's totally normal, right? Maybe not as dramatic as when, what you see with the Facebook movie. Yeah, but close, right? Very emotional roller coaster ride. So anyway, around the summer of 2014, I pretty much lost, if you want to call it that, and got sort of nicely nudged out. And there you are, sort of left in the wind, and someone's literally taken your baby. And it's very, very emotional. It's a very horrible feeling. And you just hope that they don't kill the baby. And you're like, well, what do I do with my life right now? And then I remember one day my son was sick, took him to the hospital. I spent half my life in the UK, where I'm a socialist, so I believe all healthcare should be free. And I was really frustrated with the way healthcare works, not just in here, but in most of the world, through insurance, payers. And I was so frustrated by it. My son goes, "Daddy, why don't you fix it?" So I said, "That's a great idea. I think I will." So I launched a company. It was called Ethan at the time. It was named after him. It was literally default state, right? So I started this company thinking I'm going to do it as an insurance price comparison site. That quickly turned out to be a horrific business model. Then we iterated, we changed, what did we become? We were fintech at one point. In the end, we ended up being an HR platform that we just gave away for free. Grew the company and sold it sort of 8 months formally later with my partners. So I guess that was a crisis that was turned into a opportunity/success.
Okay, thank you. Benepli is an astrolabs-based. It was an astrolabs-based company and also Knot Standard in Dubai, right? And he's now working on the third project. So stay tuned. Third, fourth, fifth, etc. Ziad, tell us a little bit about yourself and what is both success and failure for you.
Good evening. Very nice stories from both of you. I think they kind of summed it up nicely, success and failure, and what it means. I have to agree that success and failure are very personally defined. Each one sees them, each one feels success in a completely different way, same as they feel failure. I think the most important thing for me is, like Tarik was saying, I agree with your life is default at failure, but I think success is a strings of failures put together that leads you to success. So real failure is when you stop and you just give up. That's real failure. When you don't get back up again, when you don't rub the dust off your soul, I guess, yeah? So that's real failure. But if you keep going and you turn the failures into learnings, then you'll achieve success. And that can be applied in a business, that can be applied on a personal level as well. So I think that's the most important thing. You have to persevere, you have to keep on going no matter what. And at the end of your life, you'll look back at it and hopefully see it as a big success, because it's an ongoing thing. In terms of success, I think that success could mean there are many objectives. There are many points that you could define as success. It could be selling your company at a certain amount that you always wanted to. It could be building your dream office and team. It could be building a wonderful family and living on a farm and not particularly money related. It could be all of the things, all put together. But since we are talking about entrepreneurship, I think that success has to also be defined in commercial terms as well. So, but it isn't the leading driver of why we do things. I don't think that money is the prime driver. I think money is the scorecard. I think we get out of bed every day not because of the money. We get out of bed every day because we believe in what we're doing and we want to do it, even when the entrepreneurs or the business owners don't get paid for a while, right? A very long while. So I think it's something we all feel. If it was about the money, then we wouldn't do it. So yeah, that's the scorecard. In terms of what I do, I opened up my first company back in 2005. I'm in the hospitality business, so we sell food and beverage, but I also like to think of it as we sell happiness as well, because people go out to restaurants and bars and clubs and to feel happy. No one goes out to feel sad, or people want to go out with friends and family. They want an experience, and we sell them a happy experience, and we provide everything in our business to make sure people come out happy. Actually, the mission of our restaurant, Couqley, is to make people fall in love with us, and that's what all the staff know. The mission isn't to make as much money as possible. So we want people to actually love what we do, love us, love the experience, and that will allow us to grow. It's a feeling. It's not a functional thing. You guys everyone can eat and drink. It's a necessity. You can do it at home. You can do it. You can get food and drink from a supermarket. You go to restaurants because you want to feel happy. So I started my first business when I was 25. Didn't have any capital, but thankfully my father, who's sitting here, believed in me and helped me secure some capital to start. It was a rough start. I had no idea what I was doing, but I had one Excel spreadsheet and a dream. And this was back in Beirut. So we founded our company, and I think a month later there was a crisis in the country. There was assassination of the prime minister, and it was just a couple of blocks away from when we were opening up our first bar. It was at that time. So that was a good time to actually just stop and not get ourselves any deeper, but we decided to keep going. I was, I think, a 24-year-old trying to get all the licensing and approvals to open up a business. I had a full-time job at the time, so I was doing both because you can't be sure and you still need a bit of an income to survive. We finally opened up the first bar. It was called Gauche Caviar, which means limousine liberal in French, champagne socialist. It was appropriate at the time. We opened it up in Jumana Street in Beirut. It was a happening place on July 8, 2006. And so I went from, I was personally, that was a huge success for me. Finally persevered, opened up my first business. I was on cloud 9. It was absolutely amazing. Then 4 days later, there was the Israeli war on Lebanon on July 12th. So my first business that I spent a year and a half doing shut down in 4 days. So that was quite tough. And again, that was a good time to kind of call it quits because I still had my job. But I had to leave the country, and like most people did, and came back to Beirut right after they opened up the airport. And I remember thinking, okay, what do I do now? Do I continue investing in my business, or do I just stay in my job? So it was a tough decision, but we ended up choosing to continue the business and opening it up and throwing a CFP, a ceasefire party, because there was a ceasefire at that time. And it was fantastic. It was the best decision ever. I mean, of course, it was full of blood, sweat, and tears, and no electricity, and pumping diesel into generators to keep the music going, all that kind of stuff. Trying to, do everything that you would do as you open up a company, financials and banks and products and HR and everything, all in the backset of a country recovering from a war. So that was pretty cool. We ended up returning the investment in around 9 months on that one, so it was a good decision to continue. And actually, the deal I had with my dad was I would not quit my job until I closed off the bank loan, which he kind of secured for me. But that's what I did. So I did 2 jobs at the same time, and the same day I broke even was the same day I resigned and never looked back. And from then on, we grew the business and we opened up multiple outlets. And one thing I'm proud of is we opened up a French restaurant called Couqley in Lebanon 8 years ago. There are 2 branches now in Lebanon and 1 branch in Dubai at the Move and Pick Hotel in JLT. Just opened up 7 months ago. And that's a whole different story. Maybe in a couple of years, we'll be talking about the crisis and the ups and downs of that. It's a bit too soon to be talking about it, but I wish you guys would all come and give it a shot and maybe understand now the inside story rather than just seeing it from the outside. I hope that answered the question. Maybe I talked a bit too much, but thank you.
That's great. The other brand is Stereo Arcade, right? And
The other brand, Stereo Arcade.
Yeah.
Samer can talk about that one.
Samer, thank you for joining us.
Sorry.
So,
There was a
success and-
sneaker shop next door. I was looking at sneakers.
I have a problem. I'm not lying. I was actually at the sneaker store. I thought it starts at 7. I don't read emails. That's one of my failures in business. I really don't. So speaking of success and failure, the gang gave a really good insight into more of a universal definition of success and failure. I'll give mine because I'm a bit selfish like that when it comes to just these two things. So when I moved to Dubai, I was 23. I had nothing to do here. My brother got a job at Air Arabia. He was a pilot, and he's like, dude, come to Dubai. I was doing my master's, left halfway through, I was bored. I studied English literature. I didn't know what to do with it anyway. And when I came out here, I gave up a very high-paying job at the time to do a 2-month production assistant job on a Warner Brothers movie called Syriana. Like, I wanted to get into the film business. Obviously, that didn't happen. Then I worked at BBDO, one of the big ad agencies. And I knew from the 6th month that I was going to quit. Actually, the day they told me that I've been selected to go to BBDO University in Spain, I said, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And when the chairman, Alan Khouri, at the time asked me, what are you going to do? Why do you want to leave? And after 6 months, I said, are you ever going to make me a partner? He's like, how old are you again? I was 23. He's like, get the hell out of my office. So that's how it started off. So back to, this is completely random. I ramble a lot, by the way. So for me, success and failure are actually more or less the same thing. It's a very personal experience. So I had one objective, and that's been my objective since I was 23. And that was to own my own time. That's it. I didn't care what I had to do as long as my time was mine. I don't want to be 75 years old and think, oh man, I wish I worked a little bit more in that office. I didn't want to be that guy. I'd rather be broke and happy than rich and miserable. So I left BBDO after 9 months. They gave me a 3-month handover to find people to come take over. And I set up what I thought at the time was something the market needed, which is an events agency. And obviously I had no money, so I went to these 4 guys who owned a company called Chill Out Productions. The Dubai Jazz Festival was their baby. And I said, listen, sitting there in my suit and tie, which I've never worn since, I don't have any cash, but I want 50% of a company, and you guys are going to finance it. I said, why the hell would we do that? I said, I just want a visa. That was it, which they did. I billed more the first year of doing corporate events than they did in 4 years of the Jazz Festival. So they're like, we need to renegotiate the deal. I said, it's too late now. So this actually gets to how I got into hospitality. So after 6 years, we were probably the biggest events agency, 100 events a year, tens of millions of dirhams in billings, and the crash happened in Dubai. Obviously, most of my clients were real estate because they were easy. It was a bunch of 25-year-olds running marketing campaigns and marketing budgets worth $100 million a year, and I knew how to tell a story. So I used to close deals over the phone. I didn't meet half my clients till the day of the event. And the one thing that happened that kind of opened my eyes and made me want to leave events is, our clients would pay a year later. What good is $10 million in billings if you're getting it in 24 months? I mean, you can't run a business that way. But the day I decided this was not for me was the day one of my clients at one of the Dubai holding companies, I was doing the launch for Jumeirah Beach Residence, the launch party for JBR, 36 residential towers, 20 hotels. He says to me a week before the event, and we had put ads out on the radio, television, newspapers. I booked Kool and the Gang, Earth, Wind and Fire. We spent a couple of $1 million on production. He said, I had a bad dream. We have to cancel the event. So, I mean, this literally happened. He called me up. I had a bad dream that the pools are not ready and we have to cancel the event. I'm like, it's a 25 million dirham event, dude. You can't cancel that. So, he's like, I have no choice. And they canceled the event. So I went from having one of the biggest event agencies in town with literally working with every major client imaginable to dealing with a guy who had a bad dream. So after that, I decided the only business I will ever get into is a cash business. I want my customer to walk into whatever place I have, buy whatever I'm selling, pay me, and get the hell out. That's it. That's why I got into F&B, and I opened my first bar, I don't know, 6 years ago, and called One on One. And then after that, I realized that creating concepts was what I love to do, and I did that since then, basically. What was the question?
It's okay. Yeah, it's interesting. So many interesting stories, right? I'm going to skip the second question because it doesn't apply. From now on, I think we can agree that we won't use the word failure, but a crisis. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about, right? Overcoming crisis. So let's go into your stories in more details, or certain parts of it in more details. Then you can continue whichever part of your stories you want. What is the difference between explanations and excuses that entrepreneurs give to themselves? So how do you know I need to keep on going? Like you said, I was 24, but I decided I'm going to keep on going. Or it's maybe time not to pivot or to do something else. So share if you have a story, and how do you, at least personally, define the difference?
Specifically with the Happy Box, we our entire operating model at one point had to be changed for it to be successful, for us to lay the ground for further success. And that goes back to, you can either give yourself excuses, like, yeah, we'll continue doing this, but then you'll be spending more money and more resources and wasting time. Or you actually, you take a step back and you focus on what the situation is and how you're going to build it for future success. This was 1 year into the Happy Box, where we had received by then around 24 franchise requests. The way that we were operating was that we had another office in the US, so a lot of the product production, the manufacturing, everything was happening in the States, and we were shipping everything to Dubai on a monthly basis. When looking at the numbers, you start realizing that you're not covering costs at the end of the day. You're barely making ends meet. And I have always envisioned for the company, for it to grow and for it to go global. And for us to be able to do that, we have to do mass production, and we have to basically lower our costs as much as possible to maximize our profits, to be able to reach the masses and have a product that makes sense for our franchisee to buy it in bulk, or for us to wholesale the product. And shifting at that point was like a tipping point for us, because we could continue doing what we're doing, but we would be under false kind of a false implication that, yeah, we're okay, we're selling, we're this, that, but for us to really grow, we had to change it. And we were really lucky because we were able to acquire an awesome kind of, in terms of partners, an amazing logistics company here for us to be able to send these boxes globally and for us to ship at lower rates. But then we took the manufacturing of the Happy Box, the actual content and everything locally. So we started controlling the quality, the price, the material, and this helped us quite a bit because we were able to execute so much faster. We were able to meet the demands and the requirements of our clients. What works in the US doesn't necessarily work for the audiences, for different audiences around the GCC. And that was kind of the hardest time within the Happy Box, and that was our challenge. That was a really big challenge for us. Because, when you're so passionate about what you're doing, you want it to succeed, and you want it to grow, and you have a vision for its growth. But everything around you is telling you that if you don't do something to change it, it's going to fail. And I had to stop the operation of the company for 2 months to revamp it, to fix our operational model, have the right people on board for us to move forward. And that realization actually helped us grow from there, and that's how we were able to open up franchising offices around the GCC. We were able to lower our costs to a point where we could work with multiple partners and expand our outreach. I don't know if I answered your question, but for us, you have to be, I've always been kind of aware of everything that we've done along the way. Like there was, you know, I was never really oblivious to anything. Never gave excuses for everything. If something didn't work, there's a question. If there's no numbers coming out of it, that's a question. And because of that shift, I feel that, you know, we were able to set the foundation for future growth.
So it took you like 2 months, right? So.
Essentially, like in terms of thinking about it, no, obviously, like as at the end of every month, we were looking at the numbers. But 6 months within, after receiving all these franchise requests, we started really assessing it at 6 months. But the actual shift and the turn, it took 2 months for us to do because we had to stop our operation to fix everything. And I attribute like Aramex, for example, they're one of our biggest supporters. And, you know, I chapeau to them. Because of them, we were able to take our product global. We were able to do that at low cost. Thank our suppliers here that we work with. You know, I give them a lot of credit as well because they lowered their, you know, they give us amazing prices to be able to acquire material to manufacture. So what we did was, instead of buying it from, you know, the States and manufacturing there, we started a design house, a manufacturing house here. And which leads to innovation, which leads to being, you know, you're a local brand. You take your passion and you see it happen and you control it and you control the process and you become even more innovative and you can run with it even more. And yeah, that's how we've been going from there.
Thank you. Tarig?
So just to reiterate / make sure I understand the question. The question is, what is the difference between excuse making and
maybe some kind of what you consider rational explanations that, you know, not considering that something really needs to change, thinking it will work, I just need some more time or something like that. How dangerous it is on an entrepreneurial journey. If you've had that experience, maybe not.
Okay, so I don't know what excuse making is, to be honest with you. It's not in my DNA, and I come down pretty harshly on people who I work with or employees, because by definition, an excuse is there's a problem, right? And there's no solution or suggestion to it, right? And whenever I'm working with someone, if they're an employee, I always tell them it's a pretty awful quote that my boss gave me years and years and years ago in the investment bank, where I ran over to him, I remember vividly. And I said, we have a problem. I misplaced, I'm not joking, $200 million. And he sort of calmly looks up to me and he goes, Tarig, I pay you for solutions, I don't pay you for problems. And he just looks down. That's a terrible management technique to actually use on somebody, but it stuck with me, right? It's actually a very true phrase. I mean, I don't think any entrepreneur or any person who's worth their salt should come up with excuses, right? Whether you want to lose weight or start a business or whatever, look for a problem and just solve it. I found it. I found it like the next day. Yeah, never give money to HSBC, just say. I'm gonna get sued now. So coming back sort of to the second part of the question, again, by default, everything is wrong, right? When we started Not Standard, I mean, one of the partners wanted to sell cowboy boots online. And we're like, what? That's dumb. Let's sell suits. When we started Athen, we were comparing insurance online, right? And you just pivot. It's interesting to hear you say about change cycles of sort of 2 months, right? See, if I've learned anything, it's sort of the change cycles need to be days, literally days. And whether you're a big company looking to innovate and increase revenues, or whether you're a completely brand new startup going from 0 to 1, you should have one person who's like your chief troublemaker running around questioning everything. Is this the best source of capital? Is this the best source of fabrics? Is this the best way to ship logistics? Is this the best employee?
And that was me.
Right, good.
Because, you know, we're such a small company. So,
and that gets harder the bigger you become,
right?
Hard,
yeah, because then you have to actually
delegate,
let go,
yeah,
and trust,
yeah,
and let them make the mistakes.
Calculated mistakes.
Calculated mistakes, and find solutions for them.
Yes.
That's where it's hard.
Cool. I think that's it.
I'm sorry Nokia guys didn't know about you. you know.
Yeah.
When it comes to
I felt
excuses
so
and
bad when that
explanations,
CEO
or
was, like, out
companies
there
like
crying.
that, right?
What was his catchphrase? We didn't do anything wrong, right?
But we failed, yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the question is about. What do you say?
So explanations versus excuses,
If any.
if any. Look, it's very easy for each one of us to give ourselves excuses with anything in life. I'm too tired, so I won't go to the gym today, or next week, or
say that a
tomorrow,
lot.
or I'll start my diet tomorrow, or, you know, it's easy. And it's human nature. We give ourselves excuses and we rationalize them and we explain them to ourselves. It's the same thing in business. You second guess yourself every second. And you have to have a good system to call yourself out when it's just an excuse. Because you can say, the economy is bad, that's why we're doing bad. That's easy. It's easier to absorb than saying, all right, the economy is bad, but maybe I have to do tough things like lay people off, or downsize, or negotiate with suppliers. And you know, that's the harder way, and that's when you have to call yourself out. What can I do? That's what you have to ask yourself. Is there anything I can do? And then you have to go for it, even for the things that seem impossible. You just have to keep doing it. So we give ourselves hundreds of excuses every single day in our normal life, and in our business life it just amplifies. And you need to be able to face up to the brutal, honest truth. And there's an article online that talks about the psychological effects of entrepreneurship, and it's
I think
tough.
I've read that one.
You read that one, yeah? And they say in that one, it's like riding a lion. So everyone looks at a person riding a lion saying, wow, he's so brave, he's so cool, he's riding a lion. But in reality, the person riding the lion is like, what am I doing here? And am I gonna get eaten up alive? And that really shows the psychology of it all. And it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. So in terms of explanations and excuses, you know, they're one and the same thing. It's just what you decide to rationalize versus what you decide is an excuse. Because one day it could be very rational, the next day you could look at yourself and say, no, actually that was an excuse because I can do something about it. So it's just always acknowledging that and having an internal checks and balances and having support structures and mentors. Because someone might second guess you and say, are you sure that, you know, you need to buy this from here? And then you kind of scratch your head and say, damn, I've been making excuses to myself the whole time. You just want to avoid doing that part of the work because it doesn't feel good, you know? So I think that is you just have to be honest with yourself.
That's how you prevent the crisis, right?
So that even when you're in a crisis, it's a lot easier to say, oh, crisis isn't my fault. The economy is bad, there's a war, it's not my fault.
I think the sooner you embrace it, the better it is.
Yeah. Well, you know, since you're in charge of the business, it is your fault, even if it isn't. So you have to make it your fault, and then you have to assume that responsibility. You have to deal with it, and you have to persevere. Yeah, you just have to go with it. Sometimes crawl.
Summer, did you hope that that guy would have another dream, or you realized immediately that it's not going to happen?
Sorry?
I'm saying, did you hope that that guy would have another dream, or you realized immediately? And what would be your advice for people, you know, facing something that big and like, okay, this is really happening, you know?
I personally, does everyone else think or believe that everything is relative, or is it just my twisted mentality? I love excuses. Gyms wouldn't exist as a business without excuses because you have 1,000 members, but only 20 of them show up. So you need staff to service 20 people, but you're getting paid for 1,000. It's incredible. I love excuses, but not for me. I'm not saying you should do this, but excuses that other people put on the table are what make us successful. People being too lazy to go and get a better deal for insurance is what made Tariq's company appealing to them. If everybody was a go-getter, we'd be screwed. Sorry, I know there are kids here, but nobody told me.
Duck is the word.
Duck, yes. So many ducks these days in this economy. But being irrational is really just being insane these days, because nothing makes sense. If you think about our lives, I mean, what are we really doing here? We have a finite amount of time on the planet. We spend most of it trying to put acorns in a hole in a tree. And ultimately, if something doesn't work out, I say, yeah, it didn't work out. But for me, it's not the end of the world. I mean, sometimes you have to cut your losses and say, it's not an excuse. It just doesn't make sense. And you move on to the next thing. So there's nothing wrong with actually making an excuse, as long as that doesn't become your life. And everything's like, oh, poor me, and this is what so-and-so wanted, and there's some invisible man in the sky pointing his finger down and saying, this is how this guy's life is going to end up. I mean, you can make an excuse about almost anything. I only use the gym example because that's the easiest one to use.
Do you use that excuse about the gym?
No.
Oh, okay.
I go until I'm too injured to walk.
No,
That's it.
Okay, thank you. So basically, a rational approach is what helps with preventing the crisis or overcoming the crisis or of any kind, and also perseverance. So a lot of your stories are about that, especially yours. So when we come to, the war and everything, just persevering. Shall we start with Jumana?
Sure.
What is perseverance and story about?
Perseverance for me is when I first started the Happy Box, everybody thought I was crazy, simply. My background is in government, and I come from a family who are they're public servants. They work in the diplomatic sector. For them, it's about staying in a job and staying there for life. When I woke up one morning and I said I wanted to start a company called the Happy Box, they looked at me like, what is this? What box company? What are you talking about? My parents actually couldn't pronounce the name for 6 months. And they would go, Happy Box there. And they kept hoping that I would return to my sane mind and go back to my 9-to-5 job and be a public servant. But I transcended all odds, and I believed in myself. I believed in the concept. I actually attribute it a lot to my husband, who's right there. He's the one that said to me, do it. What's the worst thing that can happen? Seriously, what's the worst thing that can happen? You have an idea, you go with it. It works, it works. It doesn't work, that's okay. We'll go back to the 9-to-5 job, it's not the end of the world. And I took this concept and I built it, and I would meet with so many initial clients from companies, multinational companies, really prominent companies, and they would look at me like, what is this Happy Box, And I had to really pitch hard, and I'm really good at telling stories, going back to stories. People identify with my story. People identify with the story of happiness. People identify with the product. So we slowly started building our portfolio. We started getting attention from the community. We started getting incredible feedback about our concept, about the product, about how we can improve things, how we can work around things. And then a lot of those companies that initially declined supporting us have been supporting us till today. So it's just really a matter of believing in yourself. Yeah, sometimes, being an entrepreneur is being crazy. It's about being crazy about something that you believe in. And that passion, everyone around you will feel it. And as long as it's making sense, as long as it's doing social good, as long as it's doing financial, returns, then you run with it. Perseverance is continuing and moving forward. It's very easy you meet a lot of people who are very enthusiastic about things. So there's all these new projects that come out, especially in the UAE, because of it being such a hub for nurturing new ideas. They come up and, they're all excited and enthusiastic and, we have this project and it's gonna work, and then for 6 months down the line, it dies down and you never hear anything about them. Being an entrepreneur, you have to have the endurance to keep moving forward. You have to get up in the morning, even if you do the same thing over and over again, it is basically believing in yourself when nobody believed in you. And you learn along the way, and it makes you thick as hell in terms of thick skin, but you could do anything you could ever want afterwards. So yeah, that's what it means to me.
Okay, so perseverance is one that I think I hold close to my heart. I do think it's one of the spices in the magic formula of success, whatever you define it as. We all see those memes, right? Of like this guy digging for gold, and the one who found it, the one who just kept going that little bit more, right? Anyone who's done any form of competitive sport, this is the person that just pushes themselves that little bit more that ends up winning. So I think it's absolutely key. We teach entrepreneurship in some of the courses, and I say I actually do think you can teach 90% of the skill set for anybody to be an entrepreneur. And the one thing you cannot teach is grit. You cannot teach that. And the person either has it or they don't. The interesting insight, I think, is that it's a gene that every single human being in this room and on this planet has.
Can you recognize it in your student?
No, we all have it. We all have it. Most of it, and I see it a lot in countries that are under stress. If as a human being you're under duress, like in Africa, I see entrepreneurship everywhere. In Lebanon, I see entrepreneurship everywhere. Here, not so much, because everyone's fat and happy, right? So it's an inverse relationship. The more comfortable you are, the less stressed you are, the less entrepreneurial, it's a muscle, the less that gene is going to be activated. If you put yourself under duress, I have no money, I have no customers, crap, I have to do stuff, magically this gene kicks in. So an example of perseverance, I think with entrepreneurs, maybe that gene is too active, so we're a little bit too crazy sometimes, and someone needs to, mentors, wives, whoever, need to calm us down. Definitely was the case 2 years ago this time. Yeah, kudos, my wife does the same. So you're the sensible one. God help you. Oh, is he? It was 2 years ago, this time actually, 2 years ago, where, broke as a joke, literally not that much money in the bank account. I was super stressed out about, crap, how do I pay for my older son's school fees? They're really expensive. My second one was just born, literally. My wife was also an entrepreneur, so also broke as a joke. We've consumed a good chunk of the angel funding we had at that time, and one of my co-founders died, right? And we got down together with the other co-founders and my wife, obviously, because it was a big decision. And I was like, guys, so what do you think we should do? Should we quit, call it a day, or keep going? And that was actually something that really sort of brought us all together. The first was the realization that it doesn't really matter, at the end of the day, as long as you have your health, happiness, and your family, everything is okay. Makes you appreciate life that we take for granted. And then the second thing was the numbers were positive. Like, we had traction on the users, the model was working, right? We just had no money. Yeah, that was benefit. So we were getting employees signing up. I mean, we went from 0 lives to 10,000 in the space of like a month. And at $150 per life in the insurance space, it's a lot of money. So we knew it was valuable and we were growing quickly, we just didn't know how to monetize it. And we sat down together and we said, do we quit and call it a day, or do we keep going? And thankfully, we all said, no, the numbers make sense, we just need to monetize quickly somehow. So, put together a goal plan and you just act on it. But it's dangerous, sometimes we can go off course, right? If we believe in something so much, we get blinded. So it's always good to have that external advisor or partner that sort of tries to pull you back to the ground, because it's a delicate balance we have from the vision and making everybody believe in the crazy vision versus being too scared to do anything, right? And we tend to flip-flop between the two like schizophrenics. Yeah, everyone just thinks I'm totally crazy.
Okay. Perseverance for you.
Yeah. Totally right what you guys are saying. Perseverance, I think, is doing things that no one wants to do to get places where no one wants to go. it's the extra mile. And they say the extra mile is a barren place because very few people go the extra mile. But perseverance isn't just about pushing. Sometimes perseverance is about thinking and understanding when you should stop pushing as well, and just take a deep breath and taking a step back and realigning and then pushing again. So it's not just a continuation and brute force of making the idea work no matter what. Because guess sometimes the idea won't work. You know, sometimes the concept won't work. Sometimes your entire business idea, your vision is just crumbling in front of you, and you just have to say, all right, this is not going to work, no matter how much perseverance I pump into it. Let's save the perseverance for myself and not for this idea, and reapply it somewhere else where it makes a lot more sense and adds a lot more value to people's lives. So yeah, perseverance is a very personal thing. It's something you either have and you either show or you don't. And yeah, if you're under a lot of stress, sometimes you persevere better, but also you can have the adverse effect of saying, so what? Why should I do it? If it's always going to crumble, why should I do it? Why not just take the easy route out? So in my line of business, it becomes very clear that not every single restaurant branch you open is going to succeed. And you find out the hard way. Even if you know that, let's say you want to open up 10 branches, or you're going to have 10 franchisees sign up. You probably know now already that there's no way you're going to hit 10 out of 10 successes. It's statistically impossible. But you just kind of put on an Excel sheet and it's fine. But actually going through it emotionally and with the people and with the staff and with your partners and with your family, that's something else. That's difficult. So you have to go through it and get out and persevere and come out of it psychologically and financially and have another shot. The biggest companies in the world and the most successful ones in the world don't succeed at every single thing they do. Look at Samsung and their battery crisis. Look at every single big company that you can think of. They can't have a perfect scorecard. And when you look at it that way, you might feel it a lot more because you're a much smaller setup and you put your whole life into it, but you should always persevere on a mental level. You always have to have things that you can control personally, so you could have personal successes in your life and personal perseverances. Let's say it's exercising and staying healthy. I think it's very important to do that. And this is something that has a direct return. So if you persevere and are disciplined in what you eat and in how you exercise, then you'll automatically see the result. There's no question about it. So if you have that personal win, then that's good for your psychology. You can persevere with your family, and if you have that, then you have that win. So not everything then will come crumbling down on you if you don't succeed in business. You have those personal wins to tell yourself that, hey, look, no, you're successful. Only 1 out of 3 things in your life is not working out right now, so it's not the end of the world. So you always have to look at yourself in its entirety, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a father and as a son and as a friend and as yourself, right? Take care of yourself first as well. So when the crisis does happen, at least you have 2 out of 3 of your foundations, or 4 out of 5, or what have you, are still intact, and that will allow you to persevere nonetheless.
Summer?
To quote every military movie ever made, we will persevere. For me, it's actually just a survival instinct, really. It kicks in. Some people, it kicks in at a certain boiling point. So I think everyone has it in them to try and survive. I think how far you take it depends on your level of ambition. And ambition is only something you define. It's not something that a book or a business school professor can define for you. So I think everyone really has it in them to persevere and go through hard times. It's just a human survival instinct. That's why we became the dominant species on Earth and not freaking platypus. Sure, horrible. That would be horrible if that was the case. I just wanted to make a joke.
So we mentioned a few characteristics or important points when it comes to overcoming crisis or turning it into something positive, being rational, persevering. And is there something else you'd like to ask us about? So we will open now the floor to the questions from the audience. If we have one. Yeah, we have one.
So I wanted to ask you about a feature that entrepreneurs may have after they fail to turn crisis into opportunity. So I just finished watching the semi-final of the Australian Open where Rafael Nadal actually came back and qualified to the final after a year of failures. So he was in a crisis, he didn't turn it into an opportunity. What's the feature that makes an entrepreneur come back after a failure?
They don't believe in failures. We don't believe in failures here. So I think that's the main point, but maybe there is an answer to this question?
It's your passion that brings you back to it. Simply. I mean, you know, things happen and I don't like the word crisis. I believe, you know, you are faced with challenges and setbacks, but what keeps you coming back to that cause or that company or that idea is your passion for it. It makes sense. It resonates with you. You don't see yourself anywhere else except with, you know, doing that. That's my 2 cents. Craziness.
Okay. What makes entrepreneurs persevere?
No, come back after a crisis.
Oh, to come back?
Failure.
Okay. So I guess if I'm going to be, I'm in the cooking phase now. So I would put in a dash of optimism, right? So entrepreneurs, I think, are instinctually optimists. You never find a sort of depressed entrepreneur. I've never met a depressed entrepreneur. They tend to be a bit hyperactive and they talk a lot. So general optimism, the ability to sort of take whatever it is, no matter how it is, twist it around in our mind, not the way Donald Trump does, you know, in a positive way, and derive good energy, right, and motivation out of it, both yourself and then other people. Passion is definitely one of them. Like, that's the purpose. Oh, okay, so this horrible thing happened to me, but at the end of the day, I don't care. I like playing tennis, right? So I'm going to go through a year of hell where I'm going to be learning, going through a journey, unfixing what is wrong and rebuilding the way it should be. Exactly, and ultimately led to him winning. That would definitely be it. I think really, but the biggest one is really sort of like your core, your North Star. Is it, do you like building? Do you like creating? Do you like, you know, making other people feel better? Every one of us as humans has that defining moment. And the second you work it out, and it's fairly easy to work out, but the second you work it out and you make your life around it, then everything becomes much more simpler. And whatever happens to you, just sort of get up and dust it off. That was very negative.
It's okay.
So what the bounce back, yeah, passion, definitely passion. Like if he didn't like playing tennis, he probably would have given up. He has enough money, right? He doesn't need to go back out there. So I guess that's the first thing. If you like what you're doing, you're always going to want to do it, even if it makes you no money, because you probably started doing it anyway before it became monetized for you. For me, hospitality is, like I said, making people happy. So if you are someone who likes to please other people, then this is part of your genetics and you're going to do it anyway in your life. So you have to find out, like if you have a business and you make shoes and it doesn't go well, but you hate making shoes, then you're not going to continue making shoes, right? You're going to do something else completely. So yeah, and not all entrepreneurs, I just have to disagree with you, are very outgoing and chatty. There's a lot of introvert entrepreneurs as well, like some of the, lots of articles, the 2016, talking about all the successful introverts who are entrepreneurs and the link between that. So whether you are very outspoken or very chirpy, I think entrepreneurs have passion of what they want to do. I think that's what sums it up. I know you hear it all over the place, but it really is what you like doing. And hey, some people are passionate about making money, and if that's their thing, then that's their thing. So yeah, hope I answered the question.
I wish we could find a different word for entrepreneur. I feel like it's so used and overused and abused, especially in this part of the world. My take on bouncing back after, obviously Rafael Nadal is a slightly different ball game, actually, literally. I'm an entrepreneur because I look for opportunities. It's really that simple. It's not rocket science. I might not love everything I do, but if I feel like there's something there, I go after it. So it really boils down to what your objectives are, what you actually want to do. So if your goal is to make a lot of money, you'll probably try a bunch of things until one of them makes you money. If your goal is to wake up in the morning with a big smile on your face because your tomatoes are growing in your garden, that's also, and that's what your business is going to be, tomato growing, which is, by the way, very hot this year. That's it.
Thank you. Any other question? Oh, okay. Lady first, is it fine? We have one lady and then we'll start with this one here.
Hi, I have a question about being an entrepreneur in Dubai specifically, or in the Middle East. As we know, we don't have strong bankruptcy laws. Not that I really hope none of you will go bankrupt, but we don't have any strong bankruptcy laws. So a lot of people that I speak to are always like, why would I open something in Dubai? Like, I'm not protected legally. So that would be my question.
We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers to answer that question, and they still can't answer it. Look, honestly, I don't think there's ever been a single entrepreneur in history that cared about going bankrupt. If you cared about going bankrupt, then that fear is probably stronger than anything else you could do. And again, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, yeah, you go to jail. It's not bad here. I've visited a friend in jail here. It's not bad. I've been in jail, but for other reasons. No, actually to visit a friend. And he's like, it's not so bad. It's cheaper than rent. Yeah, look, it's getting better. The UAE is still a developing market, whether we like it or not. We're way ahead of where most cities would have been 15 years down the line. I mean, I've been here 15 years, so from when I showed up till today, there is not a lot of government red tape, but there also is at the same time. The only thing I would tell your friend is, and if anybody quotes me on this, I'll deny it, although hopefully it's not being recorded. The UAE law loves to operate in a gray area. So if you're smart, you can take advantage of that. That's all I'm going to say.
I mean, the facts are that it is and it isn't a startup-friendly environment. You need a lot of capital to start up. There's no differentiation between starting a small business and starting a business with $1 billion. You still have to do the same thing to get up and running. It is developing, however, and we are seeing some progress on the governmental front on that. There is a new bankruptcy law that came into effect, or just about coming into effect, to address that. So that is an issue, because you could be running a very honest business and doing your best, and a lot of, weirdly enough, in this country, a lot of business dealings deal with post-dated checks, which carry criminal liability if bounced and if filed. So this is a major setback, and it's always on our mind. We always keep track of our post-dated checks because, yeah, you could go to jail for just running your business. So yeah, it is one of many risks you face when you want to do your own business. Will it stop you? It shouldn't stop you, but you have to be smart and aware about it. You can't just be careless and feel protected. I think that if you ever have that feeling that everything is fine and you're protected, then something is wrong.
I would concur with everything that's being said so far. I would say the advice I would give your friend would be around what is the business that they want to set up, right? Are they looking to build an AI algorithm in the biotech space? Get the duck out, right? You should be in San Francisco or Boston, because that's where you belong. Are you looking to disrupt the F&B space because there's not a lot of choice, the service is crap? This is where you should be, right? It really depends on the business model and what you're trying to do. Every country on the planet has its pros and cons, right? Is it easy financially and legally to set up in the United States? Yeah, absolutely. I remember once I set my first business in the US, went over in California, and it was like $250, signed it, and they said, oh, is this your first business? And I said, yeah. And they said, oh, here you go, you don't pay. Because in California, it's free, it's on us. I was like, that's awesome. My first business here was like $10,000 just to start, right? Just to say hello, right? I always joke and tell people we don't pay taxes here, we pay fees, right? But pros and cons, depending on what you are. If you're smart, you'll navigate your way around the gray economy and make it work for you. That's what we're supposed to do, make it work for you.
I agree with everything that's been said. With us, I feel that had we started the Happy Box anywhere else, I don't think it would have been able to grow to this extent. So I feel that being in the UAE and being in Dubai has helped nurture the growth of our company within the region, definitely. So it has had a significant impact on the growth. Obviously, when we start a business, you try not to really think about going out of business. And you find ways to continuously have, sustainable fund revenue streams coming through to be able to sustain the business. I'm very grateful actually for being able to start the Happy Box in the UAE. In terms of setup, yes, setting up here is a lot more expensive than anywhere else. But with our line of business, because we are in education and because we were introducing a new concept to the region, it just felt like the right fit for us to open up here. And I don't regret it at all. On the contrary, I feel that there's a lot of potential for growth. There's a lot of room for working with other partners here, from partnerships to... and plus, don't forget about also the impact of being in Dubai. There's so many people that come through Dubai. There's like over 200 nationalities in Dubai living here. And the number of people that go through to visit other countries through Dubai. So that gives it kind of the exposure for a new concept that you wouldn't find anywhere else. Maybe I'm biased. I did work for the government for 9 years here. I love everything that they stand for, and I'm not just saying this like that. I mean, they taught me to think big. They taught me that anything is possible. If you have an idea, you run with it. You find a way to make it happen. And I attribute that a lot to His Highness's vision, totally.
Thank you. Is there one more question? Yeah, please.
Thank you, first of all. You guys have put a lot of really good input into this. So thank you for that. All of you have really, really diverse businesses, and I just wanted to know, you guys, when you get an idea in your head, like you said, you're thinking about something like a vision, thinking about how to implement it, when would you think that's marketable? When would you think that that's an idea that'll work and make me money? Rather than an idea that's good, but it might not have the, money coming in.
So how do you monetize, basically?
Yeah, how do I monetize?
Or how you...
With us, when I first started it, it was, like I said, it was a dining room table concept. It was an idea, it was a hobby. I said, let's do it. I didn't have a business plan. I had no idea if it would grow. I thought, you know, why not? The moment that you put your idea out there, the project out there, and you start seeing kind of the response from the community, that's when I took a step back and I devised my plan, and I said, okay, how can I make money out of this? How can I make this sustainable? That was the turning point for me.
Okay, I never go around looking for money or trying to make it commercial. بالعربي you say مشكلجي, problem looker. I literally go around looking for problems and try to see if someone will pay me money to make their problem go away. Because exactly as you said, most people don't have the drive. Most people can't be bothered. Most people suffer from a pain and never question, why do I put up with this pain? So that's what I do. I go around, try to find something really irritating. You know, so whether it's a customer in the US or the UK that buys a custom-made suit off the rack, pays $900, magically I can deliver something for half the price. They just have to buy it online, and it's custom. It's so much better. Or whether it's like any business owner or office manager that are using a crappy Excel spreadsheet to, you know, monitor, track their employees, holidays, you name it, because that's what I also used to use. It's like, no, why don't you do something better and come to the 21st century? Worry about the money later, because if you're creating value, by definition, you become valuable, right? So if you create value and people look at you, you get eyeballs, you can sell it to advertisers. If you create value and you save people's time, and taxis know where you are, hey, presto, you're Uber. So don't focus on making money, focus on solving a problem and look for a big problem. And so that's always my two tests straight away is, I test if it's a problem, and I try and solve it and try and find someone who will pay me money to solve it. And if they pay you, then oh, that's interesting. And then you try and work out, is it a big problem? Is it like a $10 million market Dubai only problem, or is it a 1 billion global problem? For it to be worth your while, right?
Yeah, I think to answer your question, how to turn your idea into a business. Well, I would say, first of all, you really need to believe in it. You need to do your due diligence. You need to, you know, you might be in a job, or you might be, you don't have a business and you want to open one. You have an idea. Every one of us probably has 1,000 business ideas every day. And we say, oh, they should do this, or they should do that, or they should do this, right? But we rarely say, I should do this, or I should do that. So it's sticking to that one idea and testing it out and learning as much as possible, and taking that one thought that you once had somewhere, putting it down on paper, writing it out, understanding it, researching, seeing if it has wings or not, talking to your family and friends, mostly your family, seeing if there is some support, seeing if it can be challenged, getting the support from those closer to you, like I've done with my wife and my mom and my dad. And then once you have that feeling, it's very hard to leave that place of idea in your head and actually make it tangible. So it's about just stepping out and actually implementing it and doing something, whether it's getting the idea of Happy Box and then saying, you know what, I'm just going to put one together on my dining room table, send it to my friends and see what they think. I mean, that's the difference between just an idea and an implementation, literally just actually doing it. Just doing it. That's literally what you have to do. Yeah, you just do it, literally.
First of all, if anyone tells you there's a guarantee anything works, they're either a 2-year-old or they just don't understand how the world works. Stereo Arcade, a brand I created in 10 minutes at my pool listening to synth music, became one of the most successful nightlife brands in Dubai. Did I know it was going to be that? No. How can I? If I can predict the future, I mean, I'd probably be living on an island somewhere with like a monkey butler. There's no guarantee, but yeah, I mean, what the guys were saying, ultimately, if you think it's a good idea, what's the worst that can happen? I don't know what you do for a living, but if you're not happy, and you're obviously still very young, go out and mess around, dude. What's the worst that can happen? If it's a bad idea, you'll know it's a bad idea. If it's a good idea, you'll be like, oh, okay, it was a good idea. You're flipping a coin at the end of the day. And if you know your market well enough, your first bad idea will teach you a lot. Then it gets better. It gets better. Then eventually, like Ziad and I always talk, you have a factory for you. You just build ideas and you hop them out and you do the next one. We have to get started. That's it. Don't be complacent. That's it.
Thank you. This is a great closure, so go out and do something. Yeah, we have a few more questions. Shall we take more? No, for now. They will stay with us. We'll have some networking after this, so please feel free to approach them and ask your questions. We unfortunately have to finish now. So, guys, this was great. This was a bit different than what we planned, but thank you, Jumana, thank you, Tarig, thank you, Ziad, thank you, Summer. Thank you, Tharawat Family Business Forum, Tharawat Space, and of course Tharawat Magazine. Don't forget to grab your copy of one of the best magazines about family businesses. Thank you to the whole team, and thank you for joining us tonight. I hope to see you next time as well. Thank you.